to Consulting Talk Live. My name is Russell Pearson, and the date is the 17th of April 2025. These conversations are really designed to help you in your consulting practice with a whole bunch of different things that you may be experiencing, either from client generation, lead generation, through to staff engagement and recruitment. And today we're going to talk about cash flow management. We also talk about things like business models, because business models is a large part of the cash flow dramas that actually happen for a lot of consultants. And we'll get into all of that in just a moment. But it is the morning. This is cold brew coffee, and it's not late in the afternoon and 5 o'clock somewhere. So let's get started. If you would like to add a question either live on the in the comments, please do that. You can absolutely do that. You can also go to consultingquestions.com. Consultingquestions.com will allow you to put in a question that we can answer on a future episode, and we have these every single Thursday, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So we'd love to have you join us. If you have a consulting practice, or if you are moving into that consulting space, you're going to get a ton of value from the things that we've been talking about. And we've been doing this for a number of months, so you can go back and you can watch all those past episodes. We also run a podcast, the Your Consulting Business podcast, which comes out every week. We put that on places where you find great podcasts, but we also put that in a place where you can get it on YouTube as well. So right here as well. And if you go to the channel that's linked to here, my channel, Russell Pearson, then you'll be able to get access to all those free goodies. And there's all sorts of other programs that we do as well. But that's not what today's topic is about. Today is all about cash flow. So let me bring up the question. This was asked by Warwick Merry, who is one of the Forge members and actually a good friend. And this is what he asked. He actually asked a lot more than this, but this is the shortened version. Cash flow management. It can be feast and famine out there. What is the best way to manage cash flow? So while it might seem like this is not going to be the sexiest subject, this is such a crucial subject for so many consultants, especially in probably the first 5 years of your business, where you haven't maybe got a system set up and really have a depth in the sort of work that you're doing. But there are a number of business model issues that get in the way. And I'm going to talk about two in particular, the big issues that most people are experiencing. So let's get cracking into that. So the biggest one, when consultants in general, the biggest issue with most of their businesses is this gig economy. They have a feast and famine because they've got like a lot of work on, and they've got no work on, or they've got a big engagement and maybe they've got paid at the start and now they've got no money at the end. Or they're doing some form of engagement which is not technically consulting. Maybe they're actually in there doing project management, which does happen for a lot of consultants, and they find themselves stuck where they're not getting paid because they're not up to a progress milestone with the project. And so one of the biggest issues with all of this is the gig economy. So if you are finding yourself doing gigs, what I mean by that is that you're doing these sort of micro projects, you're being engaged to do a project, then you'll often find yourself having cash flow issues because you'll have feast while the project's on, and then the project goes away, and then there's nothing else. There is a way to learn that gig economy, but which is by making sure that you have a system of marketing to bring in the new gig before the old one finishes. But a lot of people don't have that. And a lot of consultants have fallen into this trap where they truly believe that the way for them to get quality consulting clients is only through referrals. And the only through referrals model is an abdication. They're literally giving away their responsibility on running their business, because if you're just getting referrals, you are just waiting for someone else to decide now is the time to actually give you work, right? Now is the time to give you a client. And if that's the case, then you have no control. You have no control about when you grow. You have no control about whether you are in those feast or famine situations. And so really the antidote to that is having a having a solid sales and marketing system, right? So marketing sales system, really depending on how you work. But Most people don't have it. When I ask people about their sales process, most people say, "Well, I get a referral and then I close the referral." I'm like, that is not a process. That is that is hoping and praying that you get someone sent to you by somebody else that actually wants specifically what you've got. And so, if you find yourself in this situation where you just have referrals as your source of engagement, and all you're doing on the marketing side is not even lead generation, you're doing awareness or exposure because somebody told you once upon a time that staying top of mind is the way to actually do good business, then you're going to run into trouble. So the gig economy is one of those issues. And let me just quickly talk about that. So um, there are people coming out of large consulting companies. You know, you've got big four consultants, but you've also got a bunch of other consultants, consulting organizations. And when they were in that situation, they were an employee. So you've got these consultants who were employees on one side. On the other, you've got experts who are also an employee, and now they're wanting to start their own business to consult about the expertise that they've got. Both of those situations, you have an employee mindset. In other words, they've been given work, right? So when they get out into the wild, and that's what happens, you step out from a space, usually because you are better than most of the other employees around you. You're usually faster at getting outcomes. Maybe your expertise is a little bit higher than a lot of other people, and you're wanting something more. You're wanting more control. And so you leave that situation where you've sort of been fed, and now you realize you know nothing about feeding yourself. And so what happens is one or two things happen often is that you get a gig with the person who used to employ you, right? And so you have this temporary role where someone is giving you the work that you used to work with anyway. So you're kind of like in a semi employed situation now, but without actually the benefits of the employment. So you're not getting all the medical and the holiday leave and all the other things that come with being an actual employee. So you feel like you've got control, but it's a false positive. So that happens on one side. The other is you go, right, well, I need to get a contract, and you go, all right, well, I'm going to do these contracts. And the reality is a contract is just another form of employment, right? The whole goal of stepping out of this employment space is to have this whole new mindset where you're able to not have to need any of those things. You don't need a contract because your work and your engagement and your value is the thing that's going to keep people with you. You are going to be the sticky element, not the contract. A contract won't do much for you just about at all in an employed situation, in a founder, in an entrepreneurial situation. Yes, there are some things that you can do around keeping IP private and about keeping an ownership of IP. Luckily in Australia, content creation is by the content creator. So like you get an automatic ownership in that sense. But there are trademarks and there are all these other things, but they're very minor. They're very minor parts of actually running a business. Really, the true value of keeping a client, not having them churn out, is to do a brilliant job, right? It's to do a great job. And so if you're doing a great job, you're keeping the client and you're continuing on. You know, there is a saying in the speaking world, because I'm from the speaking world to a degree, where they say, you should be getting 2 to 3 gigs from every gig that you do. And it's kind of the same with referrals. If you're not getting those 2 to 3 gigs from every speaking gig that you do, like, don't kid yourself. You're not good. You're not good at being able to generate the business side, right? You need to get better, right? You can get good and you can get better, but right now you're not, right? It's really obvious. It's the same thing with the business side of things. And so for many years, I even thought, well, I'm not getting referrals from my clients because they want to keep me a secret. But the reality was, I didn't have a system for getting that ongoing work after the fact. And I need to create that system. And now I am getting referrals, but I'm not relying on them. The two pieces that actually get you in a situation where you've got cash flow management issues are you have a gig and then you don't have a gig. So I've got money, I've got no money, right? It's as simple as that. Or you don't have a system to get more of those clients ongoing. Now, let me talk to a way to make cash flow issues kind of disappear. You change your business model. So rather than having this gig-based business model that you have, you can change it so that you get recurring income. Now, recurring income is not some magic passive income thing that people like to pretend exists. Passive income does not exist. You always have to put some level of energy to keep a thing running. But if you have a business model that either has retainers, that either has some sort of ongoing membership or ongoing commitment where people are paying you probably smaller amounts of money, but more consistent amounts of money, then that cash flow issue goes away. I want to go back in time when I ran a marketing company and I was consulting as well. And when I ran that marketing company, what I really discovered was, I could get that was a gig economy. We would get a project and we would do the project and then we'd complete the project. I realized I had to get good at sales and marketing. I got good at sales and marketing, even though it's interesting, even though my background for 30 years is in marketing, getting good at marketing is very different than being someone who's in marketing. Most people who are in marketing do not know the difference between moving a lead or engaging someone to actually go from lead to sale, especially in the service industry, because they don't understand diagnostic. They don't understand sales. They don't understand the pathway that you need to bring someone through so they have trust to buy something that's completely invisible, because that's what consulting is. It's selling the invisible. And so a lot of marketeers will actually sell products because here's, I've got a physical product. I, present a case around this somehow and you will buy it or you won't. But that's not how service sales are done. And that's the reality when it comes to consulting. It's a service sale, right? It's a diagnostic sale. And your point of sale is almost always a conversation. So how can you change your business model to have some recurring income? Can it be memberships? Can it be courses? But you're then a trainer, right? So be careful of that. Having a training business and a consulting business is really splitting your focus. But are there ways that people can work with you in a membership or a retainer model? Retainers are good. But you've got to be careful that a retainer doesn't turn into a contract, because if you've got a dedicated contract working with a certain type of person, and I used to do this sort of thing as well, you end up becoming a pseudo employee anyway. And because of the amount of commitment, maybe it's 1 day a week, maybe it's 1 day a fortnight, but it limits the amount of overall clients you can have, right? There's only so many clients you can have in that scenario, and you will tap out. You will cap out at some point in time. So what's the answer for that? Well, when I was running the marketing company, we were doing well at a certain point in time, and a mentor at that point said to me, you should get finance. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't need finance. He goes, you should get an overdraft or a line of credit or something like that now while you can get it, and that it'll be a safety net for when you need it. I'm like, well, I'm going well, so why would I ever need it? And he could see the future because he'd worked with plenty of people before. And it wasn't more than 2 years later that, the market changed a little bit for me. My system didn't work the way that I had set it up. It wasn't adaptable at that point in time, and it certainly is now. And it became more difficult, and I had slight cash flow issues where it would go down, 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 down. And so I had a $60,000 overdraft because he recommended it, and it meant that I had that cash flow to be able to continue to operate. Now, you don't want to run on that for a long period of time. I ended up running on that because of just the choices that were happening in my own world, probably bad management, to be honest, and bad decision making. I ended up in that scenario for 4 years. 4 years down the bottom of an overdraft that I'm paying interest on. Not a crazy interest, so it was pretty good. But just sort of trying to tread water for 4 years, and that can be exhausting. So I don't wish that on anybody, but it's a great training for cash flow, and it's a muscle that you learn how to work. And so what I did to manage cash flow in that space where we had no cash is forecasting became such a big thing for me. How long until we run out of cash? I needed to know down to the week, if not the day, how long till we ran out of cash, so I knew what decisions to make or what things to change. Because I knew that I could, it would only take me a certain amount of time to get back on my feet. And usually that was because I had shifted my focus onto things that were not bringing new opportunities, new work, and sales new clients into my world. I was distracted with a bunch of other projects that I was doing, and that will happen to a lot of people. So what I ended up realizing is that there's a better way to do this. So yes, you can get finance. Yes, it can save you, but you can also, in the good times, build up a nest egg. And so you want to build up probably about 3 months worth of operational expenses. So the things that pay you, right? The things that pay your team, if you've got any, the things that pay for software and other tools that you need. About 3 months worth should be enough to at least make you feel confident that you will be able to do what you need to do to actually convert someone. Now, in your world, you may have a longer sales cycle. All right, it could be 6 months. And if that's the case, well, you need that 6-month windows to enable you to start a lead generation activity that then ends with a sale. Now, the reality is, if it's taking us 6 months to actually close a client, we've got to improve your sales process. And that's what we do inside the Guild and the Forge. The Consulting Guild is all about training people to set up these sales processes and these marketing processes so that they don't find themselves in that situation. And when you're starting in that process, it can feel a little tiring to have to always be connecting with people and always communicating with people. But that is the nature of never having a cash flow issue. We keep the engine running by putting fuel in it. Fuel is connecting with people who could potentially work with us. The conversations are about drawing the value out of the community or the list that we've created to enable us to make a sale. And so doing those two activities are really key to enable you to not find this feast and famine, but to actually get consistent growth. Now, in fact, that's almost always the case. A large part of a consultant's business needs to be focused on opportunity generation and client creation. I call that client flow. And if you don't have probably 1/3 of your time in client flow, you will find yourself in this feast or famine situation. Now, some people have told me that if I'm spending 1/3 of my time there, how am I going to do work? Well, that is the work. Like, this is the work of a successful consulting business, is 1/3 of the time is spent in generating that work. And people go, well, if I can only work 2/3 of the time, I'm not going to make enough money. That tells me that you're actually not selling on value, you're selling on hours. So if you're selling on only the hours that you're available, that you're going to also, with your business model, fall into that same trap. So if you can dedicate 1/3 of your time to the sales and marketing activities, to the client flow activities, then it means that you can get better clients. You can get more valuable clients. You can get better opportunities, not bigger opportunities, better opportunities. Some of the smaller opportunities are higher value, which is often a really good thing because you spend less time to generate value for the client and therefore generate value for yourself. And, I keep talking about just a rule of thumb is that you want to charge about 1/10 or 1/20 if the project is enormous of the value of the outcome that you're getting for the client, to get that outcome. And that's what the focus of a consultant is to get outcomes with and for people rather than just doing work. If you're doing the work, you're stuck in that employment mentality. We're not employees when we're running a consulting business. We're the advisor. We sit at the left-hand side of the person we're working with, and we advise them, which means that our words, our suggestions, our advice, our consultation, is the value. It's not about doing things. And so it shouldn't be time-based, right? The outcome of the value you provide is all up in here, and then your ability to communicate it and your ability to enable your client to get an outcome. Again, it's not about doing it for them. It's about enabling them. And sometimes you got to bring other modalities into. Sometimes there's a little bit of counseling that you have to do with people. Sometimes there's a little bit of coaching you need to do with people. Sometimes there's mentorship that you need to do to help people get across the line. But there is one other thing that I would suggest, and I'll see if I can bring it up because I think that I should be able to. Let's see. Profit First is a really good system Mike Michalowicz created. Let me see if I can actually just go to the place where it exists. All right, we'll just go to Google Books. That'll do. I'm going to switch my camera to enable us to show this thing. And I'm going to go to, let's go to here. And then I'm going to switch this to a different screen. So let's go to here. There we are. Cool. So profit first, transform your business into a cash-eating monster. From a cash-eating monster into a money-making machine. So profit first is a really good model that I suggest that people use, because it will, number one, it enables you to take profit, which is a really useful mindset piece. It really makes you feel like the business is working for you rather than you working for the business. The other thing that's good about this is it'll enable you to create some of these war chests, some of this forward-facing money when you've actually got the money available, and so you can put it to the side so that you've got almost like a rainy day account, but it's to make sure that you've got a certain base limit so you can feel confident. You can feel confident about making decisions. If there's a downturn or you get sick, that's a big one. I ended up in a hospital for a certain period of time, and my business went like that because I hadn't put some of these things in place. That's going years back now, but that was interesting. But Profit First is a really good system to help with that cash flow side of things, because it'll get you out of a lot of trouble if you find that you are having cash flow issues a lot. It's still the business model of cash flow. So still that issue with the way that you get paid, the way you do work, that can often be a big challenge. And here's the one that probably most people don't consider, and it's certainly worth noting. My father was a debt collector, and so he taught me a lot about debt collection and about receivables. And he taught me about the things that need to happen to make sure that you get paid, right? And one of those things is, from time to time, some person, right? So whether they be a crook, some person nefariously not paying you, or whether some person through happenstance doesn't pay you, someday you won't get paid, right? So you might do a big project and not get paid. And sometimes it's because the person you're working with was no good. But on the other hand, it could also be because the person passed away, right? That can really happen. And I've seen it happen multiple times. So they can pass away. They can go out of business. They can go into administration, right? That can definitely happen. And then you don't get your cash. And so, again, that's why we have this fund in place. 3 months is what I recommend, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you're relying on a single project. If you find yourself relying on a single project, understand that you are in a risky situation. It's like being employed. Like, you can get fired, right? And then that's all my money's gone, right? And there's some legal ways that people need to fire you and all the rest of it, but it can happen. All right, you've just seen that over in the US, for goodness sakes. It's like people are just getting fired. And so when years ago, I went and got business insurance, as you should. And they asked me a question, which is really telling. And this is probably the final point I want to make around cash flow situations and how you can find yourself in them. They asked me, is more than 20% of my work in any one individual client? And luckily at the time I was spread out, and so it wasn't. But I know so many consultants who have like 3 or 4 clients, and so they've got 25% in at least every single one, if not higher. And if one of those clients goes away, let's say they've got an even split, which is very rare, but let's say they've got an even 25% split across 4 clients. If one goes away, 25% of their income just drops away. And there are many businesses only making 20% profit, which means that they're suddenly going backwards, right? They've got no profit coming in. In fact, they're losing money. And so if you find yourself in a business model where you can only work with 4 clients, then you need to address the business model. You've got to change it, because you are in a risky situation. And if you're working with 3 clients, it's riskier. If you're working 2 clients, it's even riskier again. If you have 1 contract, you are employed. Understand that you are in an employment situation. And if you want to step out of that, then you need to speak to someone, even like myself or someone else, who can help you really remodel that business, because you are going to find yourself in a stressful, if not disastrous, situation sometime in the near future because of cash flow issues, because cash will suddenly get cut off. And I don't want that for you. I consultants talk to me and they go, "How can you have 70 clients?" Which I do. And it's because I have them in different levels of membership, retainer. There is some small project stuff in there, but it's not big projects that's eclipsing larger areas of my business. If I did that, I'd probably set up a separate business and de-risk the original one. But I have a business model that allows it. And so if you're interested in the business model that allows it, you might want to look at the Consulting Guild. If you go to theconsultingguild.com, that's an easy way to find that. Or you can just reach out to me. There's 1,000 ways you can reach me, either by social media. You if you go to russellpearsonprograms.com and get the free resource there, I will be communicating with you, right? And so you'll always be able to have a conversation with me. And so whether that's, we end up having a 15-minute conversation in person to see if, I can help or see what you need, or just answer a question, that could happen. Or maybe just via email or even on these calls. So again, if you're interested in asking questions here, I'm going to close this off in a minute, but go to consultingquestions.com and type in a question. I will answer that question in an upcoming episode, and then I will send you, if you put your email address there, I'll send you the response, because then you've got everything you need to actually take the next steps. So that's the end of cash flow management. I've given you a whole bunch of ways to manage that cash. But the biggest way, like almost everything, is to be proactive and preventative. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to be at the mercy of cash flow problems, right? Be in a client flow situation. So you've got continuous clients coming in and going out of the business. You want clients to go out to enable fresh room to bring in better clients. But I'm not going to get into that conversation now. Cash flow management is a big part of running any business. And I think that if you're running a consulting business, it can feel real hard because it's you, right? There's just mainly a solo consultant, so it's just you doing the work. But the reality is it's so much easier and so much better than just about every other business model out there if you haven't locked yourself into an employment situation. Because you get profits that most people don't have the opportunity to get. Now, you can get 80% more profit in an engagement. Most businesses can't do anything near that. Anyone with a product that they sell or have to manufacture or buy in and then sell again, any product businesses, they're not making that sort of money. They start at halfway point, right? Like half of their money is gone in the product itself, and then they've got operational costs. You've just got the operational costs around helping you engage those clients, deliver those clients, and bring those clients back for more opportunity. And so while it can feel difficult because you feel potentially, there's been so many people that do feel alone, and you may be feeling alone, or like you don't have someone to speak to about that. But that's why we have the community like the Consulting Guild, theconsultingguild.com. And it just enables us to have a peer group conversation where people are supporting you, and you can actually talk about the things that are challenging and then actually implement the things that will help you create a more successful consulting practice. My name is Russell Pearson. Until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.